So this set of canvas-covered wagons steadily rolling along, pulled by a couple sets of oxen, in which we see their heads start to shake as the rain begins to pour down upon them. The pelting of the rain can also be heard echoing inside these wagons. And our view shifts to the front, where we see a large man with a heavy coat and wide-brimmed hat flick the reins, trying to encourage the oxen to move just a little bit faster. And then we shift once again towards the back as we go into what looks like almost like a Conestoga, if you can picture that. And inside this wagon, we see that it's laden full of barrels and crates. And amongst them, we see a figure lies curled up underneath a heavy gray woolen blanket. The large fellow driving this carriage turns around and looks down towards the prone figure and says, I'm sorry to disturb you, miss, but we're going to have to stop due to the weather. The oxen, I can hardly see a thing. Luckily, before the rain started, I noticed we're near a cave I've used used before to avoid the eyes of bandits. We could stop there for the night. The figure stirs and pulls back the blankets to reveal Sam. Tell us what your character looks like.
Yes. My character is a relatively tall for a female. She has long dark hair pulled back in a braid pretty much constantly. She wears more casual, kind of baggy clothing. And she has a scar across her face that's fairly faded, and decently tan skin, and is for the most part rare to smile.
Our view shifts once more, and we see the wagons have begun to pull up to a small hillside. And we do in fact see a small cave opening tucked behind jumbled boulders. We see these figures start to exit the wagons as they pull up alongside these boulders, and some of them bringing armfuls of supplies, while others unhook the ox and begin leading them into this cave. Eventually, a little while later, we see a warm, crackling fire with 4 figures gathered around it. A large man, our friend, and 2 women sitting closely huddled together. We see the hours begin to pass, with a stew being made and handed out, laughing and telling of stories amongst them until the night grows long and they retire around the fire with blankets and loved ones held close. Some hours later, Lara is awakened from her dreams when a scream rings out. Ah! She bolts upright to see dark figures rushing about the cave. The fire has been doused, and she makes out that the two women scrambling and beating back what looks like a pair of assailants. Lara stands up and launches herself forward, only to hear a sickening crunch, followed by her vision going dark. Next, we see a heavy evergreen forest. And as our view kind of shifts down amongst the trees, we see a small pond nestled amongst them. We see robins and blue jays fluttering about the treetops and finding their nests, some fighting each other, squabbling for what nuts and worms and other bits of food that they can find. A few deer grazing in the shade, minding their own business, and they're brought to attention when a small bit of rustling is heard amongst the pine needles that have fallen to the ground. As they look up, they see very quickly what has made such noise. They see a lone figure approaching the pond. What does this figure look like, Andrew?
They are wearing some battered but not out of keep leather armor, sturdy hiking boots. They have deep red, almost burgundy skin and long, thin ears and a curly mop of black hair. As Indigo Honeydew creeps forward, they have a pen and large leather book out as they sketch the scene before them and make notes of all the various creatures that they have happened upon.
We see Indigo, as he eyes this pond, grow more excited, and he rushes forward, his pen and notebook before him, and amongst the pages we can see the various different plant life and animals, and he flips through a couple pages, and we see that this section pertains particularly to what looks like aquatic plant life, amphibians, and a variety of fish. And as the day passes, we see his comings and goings in almost a quick time lapse. He moves about the pond, writing and drawing everything he can see in sight. We see him wade into the pond, pulling his pant legs up above his knees. And then it skips to another moment where we see him eyeing a large bullfrog that he holds in front of him, inspecting every little bit of it, pulling at its legs just to see the articulation of movement so he can more accurately draw it. And then it skips once again, and we see him holding a large stone cross-legged at the bottom of this pond. And we see him looking back and forth as the fish swim before his eyes, some nipping at the dead skin along his arms, while others kind of look into his hair, kind of swimming among them. And then some time later, we see him pull himself out of the pond and begin to put a fire together. He sheds what bits of clothing he has, draping himself into a large cloak while he sets the rest out to dry. He pulls some dried bits of food from his pack and begins to gnaw on them. As the night slowly comes over, he flips through the pages of his drawings. And as the night falls, there's a shift in the air. The forest starts to grow unnaturally quiet. Indigo, being very acute and keen on his surroundings and the natural order of things, notices this and goes to douse the fire, aware that some kind of danger could be lurking nearby, when we see a large, shadowy humanoid form rise up behind him, and a large club comes crashing down on him, and he falls into darkness. Our next scene opens up, and I imagine it's kind of an aerial view shot to show a small town shrouded in night. Lampposts and torches alight along the cobbled streets. We see a pair of men stumbling down the street, their voices crooning out into the crisp night air. Drinks in hand, they turn a corner and run into another figure.
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean to disturb you.
What does this figure look like, Brendan?
Sephel is a short, crooked old man. He would have been a nice 5'8", 5'9", were it not for his deteriorated, hunched form. He is a man in his 50s, appearing nearing his 60s, and age has not been kind to him. His skin is fraught with age spots and crow's feet on his eyes and veins popping out in places. He looks probably 10 years older than he actually is. Mm-hmm. His fingers and other appendages are elongated and very bony, and he's bald except for a thin curtain of gray hair that extends from the back and sides of his head down towards the neck, and he wears a deep black robe with vibrant purple filigree that kind of goes across the collar at the neck and down the sleeves and again at the cuffs.
Nice. After crashing into each other, Sephel moves around these men, insisting that he's all right, and hurriedly moves down the street, only occasionally glancing back to see if the men remain. Camera view kind of moves upward as we look back down upon the streets, and we watch him weave betwixt the buildings and alleys, ducking and darting between them, until he reaches the base of a tall hill, atop which sits a large stone building decorated with stained glass windows. He rushes upwards, pulling from his cloak a bound tome, and we see him utter a few words before he reaches the door and silently slips in. Next, we see rows of bookshelves and a dim light coming from between them as a shrouded lantern is held before Sephel's face. He moves deftly between the rows of books until he reaches another door. Our view turns upwards and we see restricted carved above it. With a soft jingle of keys, we see Sephel enter. And as he shuts the door, his eyes grow wide as he gazes at his prize. The rows of books chained to the tables that sit before him, their secret knowledge calling to him. He scurries forward, and we flash to another scene where we see him with two books open in front of him, his eyes glancing back and forth, trying to absorb as much as possible, hands flipping the pages as fast as he possibly can. And the hours pass. We see the sun's first rays starting to reach the top of the windows. Sephel quickly looks up, noticing it as it touches the edges of his pages. He rushes to return the books and begins to exit the premises. We see him relock the restricted doorway, hustle down the main hall, dampening his lantern, and we see him finally opening the front door. As he turns back to lock it in place once more, he notices a large shadow fall across him and the door. He goes to turn, reaching for his wand, when another crunch, and his vision fades also. From your various homes or places of venture, you have found yourselves attacked by a group of dark-clothed individuals. All you remember before quickly falling unconscious is piercing red eyes and gray skin that you could see just beyond the edges of their masks. Sometime later, you hear the soft swishing of cloth upon cloth, the occasional skittering of a stone upon the rock, and the echoing of it lasting just a few seconds beyond. As your eyes open and adjust to the deep darkness, you see in shades of gray or in deeper shades of dark for those of you that don't have dark vision. You see these humanoid forms walking on the ceiling. As your faculties start to come to you more and more, you feel the cold and hard bite of metal around your necks, ankles, and arms. The pull of your clothing on your flesh and the swaying of your body, you realize that you hang upside down on a long pole hefted on the shoulders of two of these dark-swathed creatures. Ahead of you, you hear the muffled talking of more of these creatures, but not enough to make out what is being said. Before you have too long to gather further information of your surroundings, you hear a grunt and another muffled voice, and a figure rushes forward, and one by one, you all feel that hard, sharp hit atop your heads, and you sink back into unconsciousness. At various points, you all reawaken again for small moments to see large, dim, glowing caverns filled with radiant crystals that refract light into amazing, colorful spectrums. Low-ceiling tunnels where your backs drag across the rough stone, and sometimes you are awoken by the soft brushing of something on your cheek, and you open your eyes to see large mushrooms, tubers, and other weird plants of different sizes, colors, and shapes that surround you and your captors. At other times, you barely awake to hear the whispers and chitterings and deep groans and growls of creatures traveling amongst the stones around you. After a time, your captors leave you be when you resurface to consciousness, and you realize why. You've entered into an enormous cave where the loud rushing sound of water can be heard ahead of you. The damp air reaches your nostrils, your eyes adjusting as light for the first time, and who knows how long, finally reaches you. You're set down on the ground and released from the pole before being quickly beaten and dragged up to a stand. The sharp crack, not crap, of a whip echoes around you, and the loud cry of a voice sounds, "Move!" The tug on your chains draws you forward along a pass that edges a deep chasm that falls hundreds of feet to your left. As you walk forward, you pass a small alcove and see two figures emerge. Tall, gray-skinned, red-eyed, white-haired individuals with long, sharp ears. It is then that you finally realize your situation. You've been captured by the Drow. A fate you wouldn't wish upon anyone, yet here you are. Pulled forward, you hear the calls from various points around you echoing amongst this gigantic cavern. You see giant stalactites hanging from the cavern's ceiling with bridges connecting many of them together. Purple torch fires hang in the air around them, illuminating this dark place. More figures begin to emerge from these stalactites, raising swords into the air and bellowing out cheers to those that tow you forward. Ah! A tall, feminine form walks past you. She has long, white hair held high on her head into a long ponytail, her dark skin almost hiding her in her surroundings if it wasn't for the light that glints off her dark gray in silver-trimmed armor. You see, she carries beside her a short rod. From the end of it hang three long, wavering tendrils. Purplish silken cloth hangs from her waist to form an almost robe-like feature, as well as from her shoulders to wrists. Behind her follow two more drow, both wearing similar armors to her, but you see no silk decorations. They must mean something of status. One appears to be a young drow with a handsome face, while the other bears horrible scars that run down one side of his face and neck. This scarred figure looks you all over with a curious eye as he passes. "Mistress Ilvara," you hear from a drow ahead of your group. "It's good to see you returned, and with more slaves in tow. I hope they were not too much trouble for you." "Not at all. Make sure the others are pushed away from the gate. I don't want them getting ideas while we get these ones inside." "Yes, mistress." A few minutes later, you cross a large swinging rope bridge, a growing roar that quickly deafens you as you see a large waterfall to your right. The cool mist coming from it hits your cheeks, and this bridge ends at one of these large stalactites that you see hanging amongst you. You see more drow looking at you as you enter into a small hollowed chamber. They sit around a table, playing what appears to be some kind of card game. In the corner, a large spider web hangs, and you see various bits of weapons and armor hanging from the silk. Two figures from your party leave you, and you see them carrying large satchels of what must be yours and their particular gear, and they fix it to the webbing. A pair of large bipedal and blue-furred creatures stand near the far wall. Large, heavy-looking hands bearing large claws, small fangs hanging from their mouths as they watch your party begin to leave. As you exit from this lower entrance in the stalactite, you see a large cave opening before you. It's covered with thick bars. A drow opens a smaller door amongst these bars, and one by one you are shoved forward into the cave. The harsh voice of Mistress Ilvara sounds from behind you, and you turn to look at her. "Accept your fate. Learn to obey, and you just might survive." Those words echo in your mind as she and her drow guards turn, locking the door and leaving you. You look back into the cell, and you see that you are not alone. You see 8 huddled forms farther in the darkness. I promise you guys, I'm almost done. Firstly, you notice a small, smoky, white-bearded, and forked-mustache, gray-skinned figure wearing similar rags to your own. His eyes appear almost entirely white, but he looks up at you smiling. He sits squatting, probably about 10 feet or so away from you. One of the other figures you notice is a large and hairy, light blue-furred individual that sits not too far from the first one. Their beast-like form looks exactly like those that you had passed before in the stalactite room. You see a red-haired and dirty female dwarf standing in another corner. She doesn't pay you much mind as she seems to be toying with her chains. A small purple gnome kneels not too far away from you, watching the retreating forms of the drow. A large hooped earring hangs from his right ear. You watch as he scuttles back and draws forth a pair of stones and tosses them into a circle, smiling with glee at the game he appears to be playing. Another large form stands in the back, farthest from you. Large hands raised and come clasped together, and you hear the loud cracking of knuckles. Their face covered in a shaggy beard, long black hair tied into a braid, and two large tusks rise from his lower lip. You see what appears to be a white-haired drow on your right. They don't even look up at you as the door shuts, and you see that they sit there muttering to themselves and scratching their head. You see their face is riddled with red spots. In the middle of the room, you see what appears to be a large, almost lumpish form of some kind of fungus. But it has legs. You see its cap scrunched down before pushing upwards, and small jets of what must be spores emerge from it and flitter about the space before disappearing. Next to them sits a plump, pale, violet Lokatha. Fish person, for those that don't know. They sit cross-legged near the middle of the room and appear to be in deep meditation. You hear low humming coming from this cross-legged form. Near what appears to be that orc that stands in the back, you barely make out the forms of two gnomish figures, also bearing that purplish-gray skin that you see of the other one before you. A male and female, they are peering around at the lot of you before ducking their heads back, and you hear their snickering. And they also bear very similar resemblances. What are your characters thinking in this moment? You were living totally different lives, and all of a sudden here you are in a fucking cave dungeon cell, captured by drow. What's going through their minds?
Indigo is looking around outside. They took my book. I really do want that back. Do you think they'd give it back to you if I asked nicely?
Oh my
I don't think you're going to be getting your book back.
They also took my book.
Oh, man.
Oh, you have a book too? What are you writing?
Supposedly something innumerably more important than you are. I need it.
Well, my book is pretty interesting. You know how many different kinds of frogs there are? It's kind of a lot.
Enlighten me.
Well, I found
I'm
17.
imagining that
Astounding.
Lara, like, as soon as the book's talk started, she has stepped away.
Sephel is just going to take a look around and try to understand the position we're in.
Okay, so you're looking around. What were you saying before, Sam?
Yeah, sorry, I think I got messed up. As soon as the book talk started, Lara would have kind of walked to the side and just started kind of watching the room, and in particular keeping an eye out for whoever she would have been within that cave to see if that person was also down here, but you described who was here and she would realize that they are not.
Yeah, you don't see any of the people that you had been traveling with. So Sephel, are you looking for anything in particular, or are you just kind of eyeballing all these other huddled figures before you?
I think he is looking more at the intricacies of his specific situation. So the manacles, looking at the kind of cage he's in,
Mm-hmm.
kind of looking around for anything of note that would allow him to get out
Sure,
to
sure.
recover his things.
Well, you can go ahead and make me a perception check while you have shifted you guys, I believe, to your new map.
Ooh.
All right. First roll of the campaign, guys.
Hey,
Ooh, and first roll of these new dice, and it wasn't great.
that's okay.
So that is a 6.
Okay, a 6, huh?
Yeah. Tell me
yeah.
all those juicy details I got.
Ooh, it's a cave, all right. Oof. It's it's a little rough. It's a little dank. Very sturdy bars you got there in front of you, and these chains look unbreakable.
We appear to be in some sort of cave.
As you are kind of getting your bearings, that small, kind of bespeckled figure looks very almost similar to you, Sephel, except they have a longer, drooping mustache, and they have those white eyes. They come up to you. They stand about 3.25 feet tall. They come up to you, and the three of you, and they're like, "Good evening. I'm Bupido. Welcome to Velkenvelv. I see you've been dragged down here by our capturer, Mistress Ilvara. Did you have a nice trip?"
Not at all. It's very brusque.
That's very unfortunate. Well, let me show you to your cellmates. And they turn. Let's see. Andrew, Brendan, and Sam, you know what? All three of you, give me a nature or arcana check, whatever you guys are better with here.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Gonna go ahead and drop some arcana. All right. That is a 15 arcana.
Okay.
I have a dirty 20 nature.
Nice.
15 Arcana.
Okay. Andrew, you recognize what Bupido is. He is what you have heard of referred to as a Darrow or Dero. They are a deformed, almost sub-race of Duragar or Draugr, or however you say it. How do you pronounce it, Brendan?
I believe it is Durgar.
Durgar? Okay. These kind of deep dwarves, they're a very magically perverted subrace of them. Some of your order had done particular dealings with them long in the past, and so you've read a couple records on them. They were twisted for an extremely long period of time by illithids centuries and centuries ago. And you know, they're never seen above the Underdark, essentially. They're very reclusive, kind of secretive people. So Bupido kind of starts beginning to lead you around the room, and He first walks up to that kind of blue-furred creature and goes,
Yes, this is your first cellmate here. Come introduce yourself.
this large furred creature. They probably stand between 7 and 8 feet tall. Compared to the ones that you'd seen before, because he also appears to be the same type of creature, he actually walks very upright, one arm held in front of him and one arm crossed behind him. And he goes, "Hey, yes, good to see you all. I'm Prince Derendil. You might have heard of me. I ruled over the kingdom of Nelrind and Vane in the High Forest. And don't believe what you see here. And he leans in close to you. I'm actually of the High Elves. I've been cursed horribly by these people." But
Oh,
but
wow, that's
welcome to the
unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. I desperately wish to be free of these horrible bindings and of this curse. I must return to my people.
That sounds very important.
It is.
How did a
I don't.
prince end up here?
Well, I was walking amongst the forest castle grounds, viewing everything that I owned and could touch. And as I was returning to my palace that night, something odd kind of rustled amongst the garden, and I went to investigate, and, well, something bonked me upon the head, and when I awoke, I was here, and in this horrible furred form.
Wow. That's like what happened to me, but without the fur.
Yes, you consider yourself quite lucky. I'm tied in amongst those god's awful Quaggoth in the other rooms.
Sure. Sure.
And what are your names?
I'm Indigo.
Lara, pleasure to meet you, Your Highness.
The whole time he was talking, Sephel was kind of looking over him. What's the read I get on this guy? Is he bullshitting? Does he seem like a
Make an insight
bullshitter?
check.
Okay.
Make an inside check.
Not good at it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay, all right.
16.
He appears to be telling you the God's awful truth. Like you are listening to what he says, and it's entirely sincere. You believe that yeah, this was some kind of high elven prince that got beaten by these drows and somehow has been cursed into this Quaggoth form.
A transformation of this nature is quite disturbing. You may
Truly
call me
is.
Sephel, if
Thank
you
you,
must
Sephel.
call me anything.
Thank you, Sephel, for understanding my great pain down here. Finally, someone amongst you heathens that gets it. He calls out to the others in the room, and you just hear a general groan, because they probably all heard it a dozen times, all these other figures in here. And Bupido chimes in.
Yes, well, let's introduce you to some of the others.
And before he even really gets a chance to lead you guys along, that red-haired dwarven figure kind of comes up to you guys, and she holds out a thick and well calloused hand. She goes, "Eldith Fildrun, here at your service."
Oh, well, it's nice to meet you.
It's wonderful to meet you too. I just heard a little bit of your story. It sounds like you've been pretty well bamboozled as well and taken by these god-awful drow.
Yeah, I got bonked on the head, and here I am. 1 minute you're counting frogs and pond lilies, and now this.
Is that intended to be a metaphor, or was that actually what you were doing?
No, field research. That's how it's done.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, welcome to Velkenven. It's a pretty horrible place. Don't mind too much of the lot in here. We're all appearing to be a little bit crazy. But if you're needing a good
Yeah.
shoulder to lean on and show you about the place, I'm happy to help you.
That's quite kind of you. May I ask, how long has everyone been down here?
Oh, jeez, I'm not entirely sure. I've been here probably 3 weeks or so. It's been a while. I've been, and she kind of grows quiet. I've been trying to find a way out of here, but just these drow have it pretty well locked down.
It seems that you all have the numbers. Has no one tried a heavy-handed approach?
That small purple-skinned gnomish figure with that large hooped earring comes in and he goes,
Oh yeah, of course some of us have tried. None have made it that far though. Name's Jim Jar. Pleasure to meet you. It's Lara, isn't it? It's a pleasure. And he comes up and he like takes your hand and shakes it. And you're Indigo, right? I have a good thing with names. And he comes up to you, Sephel, pleasure, and he like slaps your hand as almost like a low 5. And he goes, yeah, no.
He pulls his hand backwards. Like
Well,
almost shakes it like he was insulted to be touched by this thing.
He's like, oh, sorry, friend. Just trying to be friendly. No need to get upset with me. Just well, cellmates around here. It's nothing personal. You gotta loosen up a little bit. No. Listen, Lara. See, a lot of people have tried, but they've all been. And he like does that motion of his thumb drawing across the neck. If you know what I mean.
Oh, sure. Yes. I can see that many here have been through hardships, certainly. Perhaps we can assist.
Yeah.
Is there anyone here who is not part of the team, so to speak?
Well, there's Ront back there. He's a big burly orc. He'll just between all of us, he'll probably try to shake you down for whatever you might be able to hide from the drow. But don't worry about him too much. You give him a good slap, or you bark right back, he'll back off. Don't you worry about him. Otherwise, now everybody appears to be quite all right. Though Shusha, and he points to the Lokatha, he's like, if you need any help doing anything, especially amongst the chores that these drows have you doing around here, he won't do it. He thinks he's some kind of a awakened sage or something that's gonna help his people.
Oh wow, another scholar? What are the chances?
I wouldn't really say he's a scholar. He feels like he has some kind of connection to some kind of otherworldly knowledge. But and then
Wow.
It's all right. But over there in the corner, and he's pointing to the drow. He goes, "That's Sarith. He's a bit of a quiet one. He does what he does. Probably one of the more quieter folks around here." And then you got Topsy and Turvy over there, and he points to the 2 other gnomes in the far corner that are staring at you guys, but like kind of minding their own business. A little bit, like they turn away and they talk to each other, and it looks like they start arguing all of a sudden, and they start like punching and kicking each other and like scrabbling on the floor before like pushing each other away from each other, and then huffing and sitting down. Uh, excuse me. Yeah, Topsy and Turvy. They're odd, but they're good. They're good gnomes. And then you see that weird two-legged mushroom start like waddle in amongst you guys, and you see its mushroom cap sink down, and then poof, spores come out, and then all of a sudden, all of you hear inside your head, "Hi, I'm Stool."
Wow!
Oh no!
This is amazing! Hello, Stool. I'm Indigo.
Hi, Indigo. It's nice to meet you.
Man, I sure wish I had my book. I'd love to interview you. You're the first fungus I've ever talked to.
Well, I guess you've never really been down here before. Fungus is a little rude, though. I prefer, well, we're usually called myconids.
I'm so sorry. Yes, Mike did. Of course, I'm new down here. Also, where's here?
Well, that's a tough one. Some of the other ones that actually talk to me say that this is someplace called Falconbelt. I don't really know what that means, though. I'm just trying to get back to the Grove.
Ooh, the Grove. That sounds great.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's where all my friends are, and we take care of the shrooms there, and all the others, and then we kind of have communal nights together, and we talk with the mother. It's pretty cool.
Wow, I'd love to go there.
Oh, well, if we ever get out of here, I'll happily show you.
Oh, that would be neat.
At this point,
So, when do we check out?
oh, someone.
Go ahead, Sam.
At this point, I just wanted to say while this is happening, when Jim Jaw mentioned the orc being potentially aggressive, Lara is standing in such a way as to keep an eye on the orc, but she's still listening in. So I just wanted to say that she's keeping an eye on that.
Sure, yeah. No, he's leaning against one of the back walls, his large arms crossed in front of his chest, kind of giving an imposing look here. So what are you thinking? Is there anything you guys want to do as you're kind of meeting you've now met like pretty much all of your cellmates?
I would like to approach Sarith.
Okay.
Sephel kind of walks up to him. I find those that tend not to speak have more important things inside their minds. What is your take on this place?
He looks up at you, doesn't say anything, and he actually like turns away from you.
Or they're just not helpful. Very well. Kind of stroll back into the middle of the cell.
Okay.
Jim Jaw, Boopido, Your Highness, has anyone acquired any weapons?
Oh, well, that's a little bit tricky and kind of a interesting question, you see. And this is Boopido talking. He goes, there's if you can steal something while doing chores, you might be able to fasten something. Though you have to be careful. Ront might try to take it away from you.
Ront?
But Jim Jar pipes up and he goes,
Oh, yeah, no, there's, weapons are a little bit in short supply. They do regular sweeps, you know, checking out the cell and us. But, if you're looking for some intel, I'm happy to tell you all about what I know.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, come settle down with old Jim Jar. I'll tell you all about it.
and he goes back
Lara
over
stays
to this
standing.
like. Okay, he's like,
All right. But you know, whatever suits your fancy, that's fine. That's fine. You know, you do you. Yeah. No. So listen. There's about 19 of these guys guarding us around here, okay? And there seems to be about 4 of them in charge. We got, Ilvara, you know, the one with the tentacled whip. Yeah, she's the bitch. Don't fuck with her. That's all I gotta say is you don't fuck with her, alright? And then we got her 2 boyfriends. There's, Shore. He's the young pretty one. And then you got Jorlin. He's the scarred one. Yeah. Now, Jorlin actually used to be in good favors with Ilvara until something went wrong on some kind of mission and came back all fucked up looking. And now she's all about that Shore guy. But, you know, I'm pretty sure that Ilvara is some kind of priestess. And she seems to have an underling around here named, Darendil. What's the other one? The other broad's name?
And Darendil steps forward and he's like, "Oh yes, that would be no. Asha. Asha, yes. She seems to shadow Ilvara a little bit."
Yeah. So
This is
you
most
know,
helpful.
yeah. Hey, I'm here to help. Cause I'll be honest with you guys. I've tried to make a couple escape attempts, and it hasn't really worked out. But you 3, you seem like go-getters. I like it. So if you're on board, I'm up for finding a fucking way out of here.
Wow, that sounds great. And we can go visit the Grove and see all sorts of fun things. This is a really neat place. You can hear all the drippiness. I love it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty common down here in the Underdark. It's not great, and I don't know what grove you're talking about, but I'm heading for the city as soon as I can.
There's a city down here?
Yeah, but you don't. Yeah, you surface dwellers. I get it. No, I'm trying to get to Gracklestug as soon as I possibly can.
Wow, Gracklestug. It sounds awesome.
It's all right. It's held by the Dugar. So you know you gotta be a little bit careful. But listen, anyways, back to what I was telling you about this fucking prison, right? So besides these 19 drow, we got like jeez, Bupido. You took count of the furry ones, didn't you? And Bupido steps up and he's like, yes, there appears to be about a dozen of those Quaggoths. And they also have at their disposal a number of giant spiders. Oh, yeah. No, I totally forgot about those. I haven't seen them in a while. Usually they don't show up until one of these guys gets thrown off the edge. So, whatever you do, don't get caught, because you could get thrown. Listen, the other thing I know about this place is there are about 3 guard stations, and about 3 guards that watch us, normally from over there. And he points to the stalactite that you guys actually passed through on your way in, where you saw the drow kind of playing poker. He's like, yeah, So there's generally a few on post in there. You'll probably get to see them a little bit closer if you get pulled on dish duty. Oh yeah, be prepared. They make you do some hard labor around here.
Well,
Yeah, but
I don't know
yeah.
about the two individuals I came in with, but I do know that living beings are not meant to be held in a cell unless they've committed crimes. I seems as though everyone was here against their will and maybe is not meant to be here.
Oh yeah, no, nobody wants to be here. I mean, you ever had a run-in with a drow before? It doesn't seem like you have. These guys are horrible. They capture anybody they can and put them to work. They're slavers. It's awful. Don't you? If it wasn't for that slip-up, I wouldn't even be here.
Slip up.
Yeah, just a buddy of mine. I was helping him out. He was a merchant. He was trying to get some merchandise, and well, we took a wrong turn and wound up walking right into these fucking guys. You know, it wasn't great.
So it appears that they capture without prejudice. There's no reason for us to be here. It's just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, pretty much. It sucks.
We will execute
But
these slavers and free you all.
Oh, well, all right, ma'am. Sounds great to me. Good fucking luck.
We'll need your help, of course.
Oh,
Everyone.
Are you saying that out to everybody?
Yeah, she's saying it decently loudly, like, we're all gonna need to do this together.
You hear like a and you see that orc like guffawing in the back. Just oh, you think you can get me to help you? And he starts marching up towards you. Yeah, well, anything you find, any chance of getting out of here, you tell me first, or I'll pound you into the ground.
So you want to escape, but you don't want to help us escape?
No, I don't know you. Fuck you.
I'm going to approach him and say, I am inclined to agree with you and your philosophy on self-preservation. Perhaps we can talk strategy. And, can he go ahead and make a wisdom saving throw?
So you're casting a spell?
I am.
Okay. Go ahead and mark your spell.
I am.
You, go and you go to cast a spell. And, there's a pause as he sees you. Does it have any, verbal, somatic, or material components to it?
It has verbal and somatic.
Okay, so, what do you do with your hands and what do you say as you do this to him?
Well, I say exactly what I said, talking, that I agree with him and perhaps we can talk about our escape plan. And as I'm doing that, I'm kind of twisting my gnarled fingers, in the direction of his mind. I'm casting Charm Person, or trying to.
He looks at you totally befuddled and he's like, What are you waving your hands for? And you realize nothing happened. Your spell, you released it, you did everything right, but nothing happens. Listen, if you're trying any funny business, and he goes and he grabs you by your collar and he pulls you in close, and you can hear smell his stinking breath. He's like, if you're trying anything on me, I will end you. And he shoves you away and stalks off towards the back of the cave again.
He wasn't very friendly at all.
Less satisfying than his demeanor is the results of any attempted arcane usage.
Lara
up,
would
Sam?
help Sephel up,
Okay.
like extend a
Can I
hand.
help him?
Yeah. If I don't know
I'm
if you
fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
I'm just
Yes,
worried
it
about
seems
your
that our
decrepit
arcane is
form.
not working.
Sorry,
You
old
gotta be
man. I
careful,
just
you're
thought
like-
you needed help.
Super old.
I'm not crossing a damn street. I'm standing in a cell. Fuck you all.
Well,
I
as I
respect
told
that.
you, Runt is a bit of a bully. So you guys have here a little bit of information about kind of what's going on. You know that there is this Mistress Ilvara who's clearly in charge of the place. She's got what sounds like two boy toys, essentially, kind of two subordinates here, by the names of Shore, Shoor, and her former kind of boy toy, Jorlan, Jorlan. And then she's got some kind of like almost like an understudy or protege by the name of Asha. So Asha. And I'll send you guys a list of the NPCs' names here that you've met afterwards. So you've got quite a bit. You've been captured. Clearly, some of these guys have their eyes set on escape already, and you've only been in here probably like an hour at this point. Yeah, what are you guys thinking? What do you want to do here? Is there more stuff you want to ask these guys? What are you thinking?
I'm inclined to say if everyone is open to it, that we should attempt to overpower the next person that attempts to pull us out on shore duty. Otherwise, I think our second option would be on our chores to attempt to find weapons and smuggle them back.
I'll warn you against your first option. There was another drow here brought in for turning their back on the regime. And they also tried such a thing and found themselves promptly swarmed and tossed over the edge to feed the spiders. If you truly wish to escape and find the means to, I suggest searching for any bits that you can grab.
Indeed, a premature exodus before we observe our situation would probably end very poorly.
Great, it'd be kind of like studying, but the test is setting out on a grand adventure and not being thrown over the edge.
Yes.
Precisely. You are quite the studious one, aren't you, Indigo?
Oh, thank you.
Very well then. I suppose we settle in, prepare for whatever duties they thrust upon us, and gain what can be gained. The quicker we retrieve our items, the more comfortable I will be.
Okay.
Agreed.
So you guys kind of find yourselves some spaces amongst the cell here. Everybody kind of lets you go and find yourselves settled. It's pretty cold and damp here. You hear the faint noise of the waterfall not too far away, the occasional shouts echoing amongst the cavern. And eventually, the hours pass. They pass. You see the changing of a guard every once in a while, but you see the others kind of nodding off to sleep, and eventually, you all do. And can I have, as you all drift off to sleep, can you all roll me a D100?
Ooh.
Absolutely. While we are, I think before we fall asleep, Lara would also try to contact her patron in an attempt to call forth her vessel, but whether it works or not, she's unsure, obviously.
Okay. Do you wait for a particular time before doing that, or do you try kind of quickly? Like, what's the kind of how do you go about this, and when do you specifically do it?
She would do it. She would do it fairly quickly. As soon as she understood that, like, we were not going to do anything forceful, but we were going to wait, she would have tried to do it as quickly as possible. So everyone's probably awake.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so you kind of find your self of space, and you try to call out to your patron, and nothing. Usually you either have some time or you're able to call forth your vessel, but nothing occurs.
It's unsettling.
And it probably at that moment really sinks into, yeah, exactly, that it's super unsettling that you can't even contact the very being that gives you power.
I think Sephel is going to be going through a similar thing where a couple hours of the night after everyone is kind of dozed, he is just going to be sitting in the corner with himself, trying to cast his cantrips at the very least, like trying to produce any bit of magic.
Nothing happens. You try and you try and you try, and nothing. No magic. You reach forward, you find it within yourself where you want, you're reciting the incantations perfectly. You're doing the motions, everything, but nothing. No spells cast, no effects appear, nothing.
I feel so naked. I didn't even care about the equipment. We've been thinking about this, planning this, and I've had so many plans in my head of, like, I'm gonna do this stuff. If there's a guard, I'm gonna try this. Like, I feel so naked right now, not even being able to use 0 level spells.
Yeah.
I have nothing. I got nothing, guys.
We are naked.
I'm fucking useless.
What's going on with Indigo there, Andrew?
Indigo sleeps soundly and drools a little bit. Taking solace, and always, he is within Toral's embrace. And honestly, this is all part of the magical adventure he's been, envisioning since he was a little kid.
Yeah. Nice. Well, all you, let me know here what you got for your D100 rolls.
I got an 11.
Okay.
Lara got an 82.
I have and Indigo has a 74.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm holding up the low end.
Sephel, you eventually, after this time of, like, realizing that you can't use your magics in this turmoil you must feel over it, and like you said, that naked feeling, you've literally been stripped of everything. You're dressed in like a tunic rag in these manacles. You eventually fall asleep, and while you have kind of disturbing nightmarish dreams of, this situation, you wake up a little bit, but then you fall back asleep, and eventually you find yourself in a calm rest. Indigo, however, after going to sleep super quickly, super contentedly, you find your dreams, like something on the edges of your dreams is not right. You see yourself back at that pond right before you got kidnapped. You see the frogs and you see the fish that you were swimming with. You see all the different types of plants that you were taking notes of and how they interacted with the world differently in this section than others that you had been to. And you noticed that, like, there's these, like, amongst the tadpoles, like, there's these weird dark strands kind of waving in the water amongst them, and you go to, like, touch it, and it, like, pulls back away from you, and then all of a sudden it lashes and, like, sucks up onto your arm and starts pulling it towards you, towards the bottom of the pond, and then all of a sudden you're, like, struggling against it. More and more of these, like, dark tentacles just, like, latching onto you, and then this buzzing noise starts growing louder and louder in your head, and then eventually just this as you are pulled into the darkness of this pond, and you wake up from a cold sweat. Lara, you also eventually fall asleep. You realize you can't contact your patron. You can't even get your vessel, the thing that you've come to hold so dear lately. And you start to dream of the road and your new goals in life, what you're going to do, how you're going to get back to the one place that you really want to be again. But then you start dreaming about that horrible time. You find yourself walking through stone basements, the wrapping of your boots upon stone. You see cells all around you. You see shadowed faces and hands gripping at bars looking out at you. Please help us. We've done nothing wrong. Some reaching out, trying to touch your cloak, and you pull it back, and then all of a sudden you start seeing blood on the floor, and you look down as you hear it splash against your boot, and you look down and you see it, like, more and more starting to pool around you, and you look up and you see hundreds of these prisoners, dead bodies all across the floor. But then from their bodies start pouring spiders, just coming out of their cuts in their wounds, and they start dashing towards you and crawling up your body, and you just hear yourself screaming, "Ah! Ah!" And then that's where we'll end it today.
Hey everybody, this is Sam Conklin. I voice Lara in the Madness Table. We are so delighted to have you here. Thank you so much for listening to our dinky little podcast. We pour our hearts into this, so to have you here is just, it's the world. If you haven't already, we have a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Madness Table. You can also shoot us an email at themadnesstable@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, love to hear how you're enjoying the show, any questions you have for the characters. We might even shout you out in some future post show notes. So please do so. If you're loving the podcast, we would just adore you if you shared it with a friend. And that's it. So we'll see you in 2 weeks for our next episode when...
Madness continues.